Yo, what's up, guys? So we got John Lloyd here, and he is the one of the top CSMs for our client Learn to Cut. For anyone who hasn't watched the interview with Dawson, who is the CS director of Learn to Cut, or Alexei Pavlov, who is the founder and CEO of Learn to Cut, they are a company that they help barbers make more money. And the way that they do that is they get them better at cutting hair, and also they teach them how to grow their Instagram and position themselves as the highest value option for whoever it is that they're trying to serve. John has been a very integral part in being able to drive success for the project. Like I said, he's one of the top CSMs on the team, and the amount of growth that he's experienced has been absolutely massive. We've been in contact, of course, through things that we've led with Dawson developing the project, but also directly working with John to help train him to be the best CSM that he can possibly be. So in this video, we're going to dive really deep into what John's life is like as a client success manager, how things were before we started working together, and what this whole thing has done for him and his life and his family. So without further ado, John, could you give everyone who's watching this just a quick intro to who you are?
Hey everyone, John Lloyd here, speaking. So before I joined Learn to Cut. I've been doing hair for almost 20 years. I have my own shop, which I've had for 5 years. And this opportunity came across after actually doing the program myself, which was very, very interesting. So I had a lot of success. And I think after a year, Alex invited me to join the team to basically help use my experience to help people get to where I am, or actually make the most out of their careers, whether it's earning more, growing more on the social media, the skill set, and took that opportunity. And right now, here I am. And this is for 5 months. And after also having training with Alex Curry here. So,
Cool, man. So how would you describe the initial phase of you joining Learn to Cut and learning how to be a CSM?
oof. The initial phase was it was very unknown. I'm yeah, trying to recall where when I first joined and getting on my first call. I think it was very, very new territory. And essentially I was not exposed, or nor have I seen how the coaching side of things work. So I guess walking someone through, or taking someone through their journey with a already established program was probably a lot more easier. But I think what coaching actually is, eventually when I learned it, was a lot more than just sort of like giving someone advice.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, right? Because that was a huge
Yeah.
focus of the training. So,
Yeah.
what did you think coaching was when you first started? And now that you've grown to learn what it actually is, and of course, develop your own style, what does it look like now?
Now it looks like, if I were to simply put it, it's it's really helping someone realize um what they don't know they're capable of, which is a term which I always actually use now on my Instagram. People ask, like, so what do you do at Learn to Cut? And I actually say that I actually help barbers and hairdressers discover what they don't know they're capable of. Because I think it helps me as well not jump into that advice monster.
Right.
Because oftentimes we just wanna give the advice that we know that's gonna help them, but actually what coaching really is how would I put it? Let What coaching actually is having that conversation and helping someone realize that, and helping them think as well on what that's going to look like, or yeah, walking them through that journey. Yeah, I might get back into that, but somewhere along the lines.
Yeah. So, were you doing that when you first joined the team?
Oh, no, not at all. I think not till you jumped on.
So, what did
Yeah.
those calls look like?
Um, those calls look very how to a lot of word vomit. It was just I think me talking 70% of the time. And if it was the other way around, I would lose the framework. So looking at back at it now. So
Yeah. Do you remember having any specific fears or doubts about your own skill set or your ability to drive results when you first joined the company?
oh, 100%. Um I think the way that I grew up in my career over the past 19 years and how I lasted so long was actually doubting myself oddly. It's ironic because you are always well, you're always you are your you sorry, you are always your biggest critique. And it was not a great way to grow by questioning yourself always how good you were. But it's weird that it had its own effect as well. So that got brought into coaching as well, where you were always questioning yourself whether you were capable of doing the job.
Right. Yeah, and that's actually a really interesting thing too, right? Because those coaching calls, they kind of act like a mirror for how you show
Yeah.
up, and the client reflects that back to you. And there were a lot of moments where, like when we were training, um, we saw that, right? Like it
Mm,
was really clear that even though you knew you're one of the best hairstylists on the planet, so it's not even like your level of skill and the authorities has never been in question. And whatever challenge they had as far as like a specific hair cutting tactic or anything on a business level as well, you obviously have the answer to all of that. And if you don't, there's, five other people on the team that you can talk to about it. So that was never really the real challenge. It was always being able to show up in a way that actually got the client to do the thing that they needed to do. And it was never really a a matter of information. It was more so exactly as you state, like getting the client to see their full potential and understand that like they have all of the answers that they already need right in front of them. It's just a matter of doing it. And so um let's talk about this, right? There's a at least from my perspective, and let me know if this is incorrect, but what I think the main challenge that we helped overcome with you specifically was really allowing you to step into that leadership role on those coaching calls and giving yourself the permission to really guide these clients through their challenges. There's a few moments where like some of the clients like overpowered you completely in your frame
mm,
as an authority. They had absolutely no idea what they were doing. They were not good at cutting hair. They were not doing the work. And, they were kind of steamrolling the call. And I remember at the end of those calls, you always felt kind of not maybe guilty is not the right word, but there's like kind of like an air of shame about it because like that you're the authority there. You know that you could have driven them through that challenge, but their ego is getting in the way. And after I'd say probably maybe 4 to 6 weeks of us working on it, we really got things in line to where no clients do that to you anymore. And what I remember specifically is like the impact that that had on you and just your general state of being was pretty significant because no longer were you like coming into the calls with any doubt, which, as you stated previously, has always been something that's followed you everywhere you go professionally.
mm,
You're really showing up on those calls with a huge uh, gravity of confidence, and the way that the clients responded to that was night and day. They trust you, and because of that they do what you tell them to do. And so yeah, let's shed some light for everyone watching this. Like, what would you it was is all of that, in alignment with what you believe to be the truth? And then also, um what would you say was your biggest challenge during the training process?
mm. Sorry, what was the first question?
Like all the basically everything that I just said there, was that
Oh, okay.
correct?
Yeah. 100%. I it's very, very weird because going back to what we said earlier on how we actually know the answers. So how actually the clients knew the answers, but we were just sort of like guiding them through and making them realize it for themselves. Oddly enough, I actually knew the answers and I actually kind of knew what was wrong with it. But having a coach like you and doing those trainings were it was a guide. It was a guide to really pinpoint what actually about it that needed working on. Like I knew for myself during those calls where I was overpowered and what and when yeah, those calls when I was overpowered, I kind of knew where that issue was. It was definitely the leadership role in terms of being able to establish that authoritative figure. And that definitely came from never really having to be that person. And even though I did own my own shop, oftentimes I found that like if I could dodge that situation, I would. And that also happened in my personal life where if I could dodge confrontation, I would, just to avoid that awkward feeling and obviously constantly using the excuse where I already have a lot on my plate. If I can avoid this, then that's fine. With coaching, however, it was an additional layer on top of that because these were paying customers, obviously. So you were trying to establish like I think there was a long time that we talked about where it's like a customer that came into the hair studio. They're a paying customer, so you kind of had to, you know, maintain that level of like customer business sort of like relationship. But coaching has definitely allowed me to discover that we are there to give the most amount of support, but actually to really hold them accountable as well. And as leaders or as that role of having that role of authority, you can do that and still show them that I'm doing this because I care for you. You made this investment. So I'm here to make sure that you get the most out of this course. And if you're not showing up, not only you're wasting my time, but I think most important is that you're wasting your time. And especially that most of the time people that come to the course are in need of a lot of help.
Right.
So to tie it back down and going back to what we originally said, then yeah, like definitely that was like the biggest thing that I had to overcome. Still overcoming it, but over the past 12 or 16 weeks or 4 months of doing of training with you, it has tremendously helped me realize that this was an issue that I was probably trying to solve for more than 10 years.
Right. I mean, it's going to take longer than 4 months to solve a pattern that's been well ingrained for over 10 years, And so, um, yeah, I mean, from my perspective, the amount of we saw exponential growth, even there was a few moments where it was like we had one call, we discussed this particular issue. The very next call, there was a very noticeable shift. And then two or three calls later, I mean, you handled the situations completely differently. Um, have you found that this has also impacted the shop that you run and your personal life as well?
It definitely has. So when we were reading the coaching habit, I think my biggest takeaway wasn't really asking the right questions. I mean, it was definitely up there, but it was the advice monster was the biggest takeaway. I find that as humans, I don't I haven't touched on whether we're doing it to reduce the pain or the stress of for other people that you think you're coming in as a person of help, but actually doing that makes the situation not worse, but you don't add any value to it, if I may.
Right.
So how it's benefit me is I'm able to navigate situations a lot better, asking the right questions, and actually, I think the most important thing that I find that is listening and actually reading in between the lines. Was still trying, well, I guess like you said, still trying to navigate it a lot better, but I think that was like the significant change and the change that I needed to make.
Yeah, man. Do you have any particular clients that you've worked with that stick out to you as the biggest transformations that you've helped guide?
Um, Actually, after I still had some recent ones, a couple of weeks ago where I basically asked them the right questions because I think how those were set up were that they started kind of like the same time we started training. And yes, while you were still, how do I put it? Yeah, you were still taking them through the course, but there were some areas where they were still like, okay, I really paid for this, so like I kind of want to touch on, like, let's just say branding. And I think after a while, you're like, oh gosh, this person has like maybe like 2 months left or a month left. Like, okay, fine, let's just let them touch onto it a little bit. And thinking about it, I think I was like, I kind of wish that I held them more accountable and actually asked them the right questions. Where are you ready to actually go to this area of the course? And some of them did extend. And jumping back on that, I was like, hey, so during our first 4 months, we tried this. Like, what do you think about it? And how do you find your progress has been? And the answer is like, oh, I feel like, I could have worked on this a little bit more. And asking the right questions allowed me to basically sort of like project what I'm trying to say. And once they made that self-realization, I can go in and say, like, yes, it is. Is it up to the standards that we need to be? No. So therefore, this is why we should be working onto it. So these turnarounds still do happen quite a bit for me, but I think the biggest one was definitely that what's his name? Still in my head. I should I say his name out here?
It doesn't matter. I mean, you can just say their
Yeah,
first name
yeah,
if you want.
yeah. So there's this customer, sorry, client Tyler. Yeah, that was the biggest one because I remember that one. That was definitely the biggest change, or the turning point, because we did that call review, and I think it was. I guess, yeah, it was a choice whether you wanted to like make a change or not. And I think being during that call review, it what's the right word for it? It got broken down into such small pieces that you were really exposed on what you needed to work on. It was just in front of that. It was embarrassing, but at the same time, it was like, I think at the end of the call, and I tell and I'm not sure whether you remember this, but I what do you call that? I I got off the computer. I went outside. I think I had a good cry for like an hour and a half. Um, and I asked myself, and it's like, so you have the opportunity now to fix something or to start to work on something that you've been avoiding for 10 years. Are you going to make a change or not? And yeah, I told myself, fuck it. Like, you know, I think a lot of things ties down to that North Stars, and just like generally how we coach people. If I wanted to hit my goals, I had to fix this, or I had to like deal with it, finally deal with it. And that was the turnaround point. That was definitely the change that I had to make to not only be a better coach, but also to be a better boss, be a better leader, be a better husband, be a better friend, whatever. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that I find the most valuable as a anyone in a client success role, but definitely a client success manager. It's what we talked about before, where your work, you can't escape your own condition. You can't escape your own psychology and your own state of being when you're coaching other people because it gets reflected right back to you from the clients. And so, like, in one way, like, yeah, you're helping guide and lead the clients, and that's, of course, the core of the role. But the same thing happens to you as well in the whole process. And I think it's one of the biggest catalysts for growth and change is being in a client success role. Um, Also, too, the other thing as far as skill development goes, right, is like you've been cutting hair for almost 20 years, but I'm sure being a CSM has helped you even further increase the level of teachings and skill set that you have just because you're solving so many different people's problems at such a scale. Way more like you'd have to cut uh, probably like 50 people a day with the amount of
Mm.
challenges that you face with just serving alone, right? If you were just to serve all the clients that you have inside of Learn to Cut. And so just the level of reps that you get with being able to solve challenges just naturally increases your skill set and of course your ability to teach as well, which is surely transferred over into coaching your team at the shop, right? Um,
Yeah.
One thing I want to touch on as well is like you mentioned, the the during the training process, um it's pretty challenging, when actually real challenges come up, exactly as you described that you've been facing for 10 years. Um, how would you say, like, what kind of environment did we create for you to be able to, in a supportive and growth oriented way, overcome that challenge?
I think the environment you guys created was it it was more a casual, like you weren't being it's odd, like you weren't being interviewed, or you were going through the calls and it was friendly, it was safe, it was, you knew that you could you are going to make mistakes, but everyone in that room is there to give you support and help you. So I find that like that was definitely what helped, um or made you want to improve yourself, because everyone was working towards a higher standard or a higher goal. Most jobs, or most I guess structures, or companies, most of the time I would say it's an interrogation sort of like thing. Performance review, if you may, and it's weird because it's like, if you it's almost like how you set the tone for the whole entire meeting. So every time I got into it, I knew I was gonna get, not to say ripped apart, but you knew you were gonna get on a new one, but it was in a good way. It was more for like, okay, so I need to take things apart to better myself at those areas where it needs improvement. But knowing that you had the support of your boss, your coach, and Sam and everyone around you, it it was okay. It was something that you were like, I was looking forward to it. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome to hear. That's
Oddly, yeah, oddly.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's something that I take a certain degree of pride in because I don't think creating that environment is not easy, but as you said, it's critically important that people feel safe, especially when you're in any type of coaching situation. Because I was really just coaching you guys, although it was in a different kind of context, a different way that you would coach, um, normal one-on-one clients. It's different in a group setting when you're specifically trying to train people, but um, if people don't feel safe, then they're not going to be honest. If they're not going to be honest, and the opportunity for them to make critical decisions for themselves, or it's going to be very difficult. And Yeah, it's very, very important that people feel safe and supported in environments like this. And so, do you feel like
Yeah.
that general vibe has carried over into the rest of the department, even outside of the training calls?
Oh, 100%. I don't think a lot of people in general know. Um, not to say I don't want to say the importance. I think every role is important, but I don't think they know how powerful this particular department is and how powerful the things that you can do. Especially like working 4 months with you, it was how'd I put it? It wasn't like, I don't know, like not to say like crazy mind blowing and stuff. It was just simple. It was simple, but it fixed a lot of things, or it a lot of, I guess, issues got pointed out. And I'm trying to find the right words for it, but I feel like you get what I mean. It wasn't like you were going for like Tony Robbins and then you were like, oh my God, he's like, I'm gonna be a better person tomorrow. It was practical. An environment that was set really, really safe that you could be very comfortable in, and the explanation and how things got broken down. And it was very, very simple. Like I said, I think the crazy thing is that it was simple, it was easy to understand, and that made it all the more easier. And I think I've taken a lot from that and I've applied it into my own life and my own career. Um, and it's really amazing how you can. I don't think a lot of things get solved. I don't think problems in general get solved, but you can have a conversation about it and discover what's on the other side. And I think being very, very comfortable in having that conversation, I think is what I've carried over onto a lot of aspects of my life, is just be very, very curious about it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And to your point too, like, yeah, sometimes the problems don't get solved maybe at face value um, on that specific call or in a specific conversation that you have in person or whatever. But um, kind of speaking to what you mentioned earlier in our conversation as well, a lot of times people just need to be actually listened to. And a lot of times when that happens, things tend to solve themselves. So I think that's an interesting note as well. You mentioned too, like a lot of people don't know how powerful client success departments are. We talked quite a bit about the transformation delivery component of a client success department, but there's a whole other side of the department as well, which is the business purpose of it all, which is, of
Mm,
course, to generate back end revenue. And that
yeah.
comes in the form of upsells, downsells, renewals, referrals, testimonials, case studies, um, referrals, all that kind of stuff. And so, the one thing that we made certain was understood at the end of the basically the training sessions that we were doing was, okay, so now that everyone knew how to coach, it's like, okay, well, let's apply this to the business specifically, right? And
Mm,
so could you speak to that component of the client success department as well? Of like, beforehand that wasn't really a factor in the CS department, and now you have like a very clear understanding as far as what the specific role is that you're doing on a transformation level, but also for the business too.
mm. Um, so I think what's how that yeah, how sorry, can I get that question again? That last
Yeah,
part right there.
yeah. So essentially, the question is, now that you know what a client success department is supposed to do for a business as far as generating back end revenue, how has that changed the way you've gone about your workflow?
It's definitely made, like, I think that yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it is it's It's a business. It needs to generate income to what do you call it? To stay functional. I think how that's helped me is being able to, I guess, identify the best candidate as well to either continue or move forward with the training. Essentially, it is, how do I put it? When I first got into the company, I didn't think I was gonna touch on sales and back end office and stuff. I thought my job was just to just bring people, share my experience, bring people through the program and then share my experience and basically just guide them. But knowing now that how we actually know what's best for the client or and actually after even coaching them for 4 months, the level of trust that they have with us, we actually sort of like know whether they're a good candidate to getting lost with this, with what I'm trying to say.
Well, you've been able to identify like who's a good fit for an upsell or whatever it is that you're going to sell them next. But I think the one thing that's really important to highlight with this as well is that, when you see sales through the client success lens, it becomes very apparent that it's actually of like vital importance that you do sell them into the next thing if they are a good fit for it and if you are the best shot that they have at solving whatever the problem is. Because
Yeah.
they just get a continued support and you've already seen the impact that it had on their life, and maintaining that relationship with them is only going to increase the amount of value that you provide.
Yeah, I what I have in my mind is like um yeah, it's definitely the continuation support, but it's almost like they're reinvesting in themselves. But yeah, gosh, this one's tough.
Well, the act of
Yeah.
paying for something naturally causes you to it's like it's a commitment. It's a decision that you make, right? And
Mhm.
when they make that decision again, it just continuously reinforces their commitment to growth for themselves. So I think that's kind of what I'm getting from what you're saying here. So
Yeah, yeah,
there's value in that as well.
100%. I was trying to find like the right words to construct that sentence because you're not really like, yeah, I think the intention is that like I'm not trying to like, how do I put it, sell people what how to say, like just to make money for the company and whatnot. I think is like the beauty of it is it's this very odd. I'm not sure whether it happens. I think because I'm still so new to coaching. I think they may be in our industry anyways. Over the past 19 years, I've seen plenty of people sell people what they don't need. So I think that's just like the back and forth I'm kind of having in my head where no, like I think what I've learned from this is that like yes, there is an upsell, there is an upsell. At the end of the day, it's still a business, but it is the continued support, especially if they still need it or if they see themselves going further than they're than they're than they are well where they are right now. But it's not something that they don't need because there is that level of trust that it's built. And if anything, I feel that like if they have come to a point where they don't need it, it's actually probably maybe the biggest achievement that you have because this person's basically ready to go out there and be like, yeah, I can do this on my own.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure.
um but just yeah, just coming back into that is it's yeah, I think that's pretty much what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah, and like even if they don't pay for the next thing or continue working with you, you still get a case study out of that. And it's a demonstration of the transformation that you did provide. Right. And so, like, one of my big takeaways of like that specific piece that you mentioned there is, sales is good as long
Mm.
as you actually deliver on your promises and you actually care about helping people. As long as those two things are in alignment and whatever it is that you're selling is also in alignment with that, it
Yeah.
completely changes the relationship that you have with going about those types of activities. So like it flips it on its head where it's like sales is no longer this extractive thing where we're trying to take something from somebody. We're actually trying to give them something. And in order for them to
Mm.
be able to receive that, they have to pay us. But it's more so a giving and offering rather than us trying to take something from them. And I think the client success department makes that very clear, because
Yeah.
there's no way that you could ethically sell someone something that they don't need after having a 4 or 5 6 month relationship with them. Like, how could you
Yeah.
get on a call with them after you've spent 40 hours over 4 months with them and look them in the face and lie to them or sell them something they don't need? Like, no one who actually has
100%.
integrity would be able to do that. Right. And so it's easy for the client success department to be that that standard that sets that for
Yeah.
the company, because it's easy to do that on the front end with sales when you don't know the person, but on the back end when you do, you have to maintain a certain level of integrity. So, um,
100%. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's an interesting note as well. It also speaks to like just kind of like the multi-level impact that developing your client success department has. Like it's like you mentioned before too. Like there's um, rarely when it comes to solving client success challenges do you get like these big, huge breakthroughs where like the whole company changes overnight. It's a bunch of things that seem like little things in isolation, but they stack up. And then eventually you look back, 4 or 5 6 months, and you're like, holy shit, like the entire business has changed. Like the front end revenue has increased. The sales team
Yeah.
has more confidence. The marketing team has more stuff to be able to leverage as far as like getting clear on who actually is the highest value client, what the messaging is that attracted them with the ads and the organic content. The sales team knowing like who's qualified and who's not, the level of conviction that they have when they show up to those sales calls, knowing that whoever gets closed on the back end is going to be served at the highest level. The client success department actually being able to do that, and with as little burnout as possible, people actually liking their job, um, and of course generating back end revenue. It's a full end to end transformation that
No.
happens when you focus on client
100%.
success. It's pretty crazy.
It is. It is. It, yeah, I think I get stuck sometimes because it's actually really wild how every department has its own role to play, and essentially also how important like the CSM department is, because it is the experience that drives the client to either purchase more, continue, or refer someone based on the experience they've had. And oddly enough, this is a very weird feeling for me, but whether they continue, well, I don't want to say whether they continue. I'm pretty sure they do get value out of it, but that sense of achievement actually comes when they actually extended it. You kind of know that you did a good job in a way. But I don't know. I'm still exploring that sort of like that area there, whether it means that or not. But for now, it kind of is.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we talked about like a lot of stuff that we did. We touched on leadership, we touched on being able to listen, we touched on isolating like what real challenges are, being able to get people to believe in what their full potential is. Um, if you had to get rid of everything that we provided for you and the rest of the team, but you could only keep one thing to be able to, continue to use in your business, what would that be?
Oh, 100% listen with no doubt. The ability to do that, because I think that's the that's the start, or if not the catalyst being basically being able to do all of those things. Without it, it's you not to say, yeah, without it, it's just impossible.
And knowing everything that you know now, what would you do differently when you first joined the company if you had the same level of awareness that you have now?
I think definitely listen more. Yeah, even more so. Um, I may have a little bit more success, but I think actually, yeah, maybe listen more, but I wouldn't really change anything though, because it's brought me where I am today. I wouldn't have it any other way. Could
Yeah.
it be better? Always in your head, but um, I allowed it to happen, and I think that's sort of like contributed to the amount of growth that I had in the past 4 months, and in such little time, for me, that's it's huge. It's kind of like, I don't know, yeah, it's like what you said about the little things that build onto a big thing. 2 months or 4 weeks in the training on every Wednesday at 5 in the morning. I was like, at first I was just like, I don't know what is this and where is this gonna go? And then 8 weeks later, you're like, oh shit, like this is what it led up to. So I wouldn't have it any other way if you ask me. Actually, I would take that thing back, where knowing what I know now, and if there was anything I would change, I wouldn't change anything,
Yeah.
because I enjoyed that journey getting to where I am today, even though it was really short.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that mindset too, because that's the way that I
Yeah.
tend to think about the past in general, right? Every single little thing that happened, even the most insignificant things, had to happen the exact way that they did happen in order to bring you to this moment. And
Yeah,
this moment is the best thing that could possibly be happening, you know? And so, yeah,
exactly. I think it's kind of like what you said as well. It's like you develop this ability to think, and most of the time I think as humans, we're always like destination, destination, destination. If I did this different, I would be in a different place. But we oftentimes don't think about journey, and having the ability to not only listen to other people, but listen to yourself and ask yourself those questions as well, I would say is really important. Because early on, like literally, I just said like, "Oh, actually, I would change this," but then I think while you were like saying, continuing that, I thought to myself and asked myself, I was like, would you really change anything though? Like, if you wouldn't appreciate it if you just change those things.
right.
So sometimes you got to make those mistakes to get to where you are, and I think that's that. So yeah, I wouldn't change anything actually.
Yeah, that's a great answer. So,
Yeah.
yeah, John, I want to thank you for the level of transparency and just candidness that you've had in telling your story. Do you have any
Mm.
kind of closing thoughts or any pieces of advice that you'd give to someone who is currently a client success manager or someone who's thinking about becoming a client success manager?
Well, obviously, like what Alex Kerr did, go read The Coaching Habit. It's probably one of the, if not the most important book you'll read in your career. I find it's not some 400-page um coaching, or you know uh what do you call it, mindset book that is like, what do you call that, yeah, by a celebrity or whatever. It's just oddly tiny thin book that allows you to listen and ask the right questions. It was amazing because it was so simple. There were so many things that people or the world nowadays just tries to overcomplicate. But then actually, what's funny, the other thing that I learned about coaching was just literally keeping it simple. Like it was that, like, not easy, but it was just keeping things simple. And um for anyone that's looking to get into this role, is set the you got to have the right intentions to get into this role. I think if anything, your client success I think it reflects on where you're coming from. um manage your energy, obviously, and ask, yeah, and just, yeah, I think if to summarize, I was going to keep things simple, read the coaching habit and ask the right questions.
Yeah.
Listen, one more. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, with that being said, if you guys want a full breakdown on every single little thing that happened inside of the Learn to Cut client experience with me and my company, I have a video down below where I go over every call that we did, every week, every event, every little thing, every message that we had back and forth, all the problems that were happening at specific points in the timeline, how those problems came to be, why they're an actual problem, and what we did to solve them. And of course, at the very end, we go over the results. So if you want to take a look at that and are curious to implement similar things in your business, check the link down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.